Hey everyone, a warm welcome to our episode of Leading Your Agency. Today again with my good colleague and expert Francesco in the call, head of consulting here at Assembi Consulting. My name is Benjamin. I'm the founder of Assembi Consulting. We help agencies scale and streamline their operations and organization. And today we want to talk about a topic that is, I think, omnipresent for agencies today, which is tech stack. I think there's no agency out there anymore that doesn't operate on some form of software and technology tool stack. But the question is your tech stack really simplifying your work, or is it actually creating a lot of limitations and frustrations in the day-to-day? Our experience is that the tech stack is as likely to produce good outcomes as it is to really frustrate your team. So the question is, why is that? And what can you do about it? This is the topic of today's session, why your tech stack is not simplifying your work and what to do about it. And as Francesco is our technology expert here at Assembi, Francesco, you want to take it away? Happy to hear your insights from our client work on tech stack in agencies.
Sure, Ben. Thanks for the introduction. So today, the idea is to quickly go over what we experience with our clients when it comes to tech stack, and how to try to avoid some of the pretty common issues that are met by the agencies and also by companies in general when it comes to selecting and using the tools that should simplify your processes. So let's go over what are the common issues that we normally see related to the tech stack and how the technology tools are used. So there are normally a variety of tools, but the issues are pretty much very common and recurring, and they can be bucketed under few very specific categories. Number one, and I would say the most common, and I would say also the most problematic, there is no single source of truth. So you don't, as an employee, as an entrepreneur, you don't know where the truth related to some data is found. So where are the correct hourly rate for the client? Where is the correct contact information? Is the status of the tasks updated or not? Many examples. So basically you have data that is many times redundant, either duplicated in multiple tools, or data is not updated yet in the systems, is in the mind of the people. So you can never fully rely on the data, but you always have to double check, and that's pretty common. Another one, also closely related to the first one, is there are multiple tools used for the same or similar tasks. So typical one are project management or task management tools. The creatives like Asana, the managers use Trello, and they are very closely related, and you have just multiple tools because there was no consensus, there was no explicit selection, and so there was this proliferation of different tools, and they don't speak with each other. Another one, again, related to tool selection, it's a little bit on the other opposite. You have what I call Excel or Google Sheet creep. So you have spreadsheet used for basically every task. That's pretty common. It's pretty normal. You need to track time. You need to track tasks. You need to have to do a quick budget, and you start using Excel. And then this Excel becomes institutionalized, and you quickly add another tool or another source of truth to your tech stack, and then it becomes part of the processes, and it has never really been vetted in any way, and so you have many tools. Another one, You have the right tools, you have a single source of truth, but people are not being trained, they don't know how to use the tools. So that's I mean, it is common. I would say it's partly due to the fact that really, as always, training is always an afterthought, and we think that the tool will be self-explanatory. And on the other side, also, people haven't been given normally the chance to have like some onboarding period, some piloting, and some testing. So you have the right tools, you have the right stack, but still people have a barrier on using that. Another common issues that we see, it's over automation. I'm the first person guilty of that. I try to make everything mechanic. On paper it works. On paper things can be pretty much streamlined and pretty much be divided in several steps. But then in real life, things are always slightly different. The project cannot be closed or invoiced right away. You need to have a final green light from the client, or it's always good to have some wiggle room, if especially when you have a high variance of not very highly stable processes. So automation is good, but it should be used carefully, and not it should be done for the sake of being automated, because many times it can backfire, which is related to having inflexible or rigid processes. No, so you have to do that. You cannot create a lead until you have a contact. You cannot create a contact unless you have either a phone number or an email. On paper is perfectly reasonable. Then in real life, it's always a different matter. So these are, I would say, 6 typical issues, related, partly overlap, that we found in several clients. And I mean, Ben, you also have quite some experience in that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's extreme examples for all of these, but I find that especially when it comes to the commercial success of an agency, the question of single source of truth is a critical one, because you want to know, what quote the client finally signed, what hours were allocated and tracked on that project, were there any extensions of scope, what do you need to bill the client, right? This obviously becomes easier if you're on and we discussed time tracking the last week, when you're on a retainer or flat fee basis, but then still you want to know how profitable you are. So with on the commercial side of things, single source of truth is very critical. And then also over automation and inflexible rigid processes. Another variant of this problem is the over expansion of toolset, right? Where you basically just add tools just because they have cool functionalities, and the tool landscape itself just grows out of the reasonable, right? So it's another form of over automation, just like having a tool for every little bit of tasks that you do, ending up with 30-40 different software tools, which is not uncommon, right? It's something that goes very easy if you don't keep track of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's see what are some, I would say, common sense and savvy technology principle when it comes to selecting and maintaining your tech stack. So principles are pretty straightforward, and the trick is really keeping them in mind and implementing them. First of all is starting from the key processes. Again, it's good to have like an omnipresent, storing and knowledgeable about all of your processes and data, but probably you don't need to cover everything. No, so we will see an example later, but you may start from some key processes. For example, the lead management, the task management. You may not need in a first instance to cover like side processes like I don't know, customer customer support if you are, for instance, an agency. It may be the case, but probably not, or not at the beginning. So really start focusing on the key processes. Second one, which is I would say the dearest to me, is regardless of whether you have tools, spreadsheets, pieces of paper, you need to define where each single source of truth lies. So where is the pricing? Where are the leads? Where are the contacts? Where are the tasks? So that is very, very important. So it's the Bible of the data. Where is the truth? Where do you find that? And again, this is not tool related. Third one is sometimes when you select a tool, and again, it's very easy to get attracted by very fancy and sophisticated tools with many features that you probably won't need and probably won't ever need. So it's really, what we found is really better to really have a tightly fit tool in terms of features, as opposed to having the strategy of growing into a tool. I mean, it's very difficult because there is already a barrier in adopting a new tool. And I mean, you would never adopt SAP for and think we will grow into that. I mean, as a 10, 20, or 30 people company. So start small. It's better having some limitation for some lack of features, that being slowed down, but having really a heavier tool, something that is overburdened with features. So start simple. Fourth point, leave room for manual intervention. Again, it's easier if you have a simpler tool. Make it possible to have the right and standard way to do things, but also if you need to push one lead back one stage because a proposal was accepted and then not, or you need to have to change a contact, or you need to reopen a task, that is possible to do that. Or if you need to invoice in a different way. So again, it's good to have automation. They need to be carefully selected. They don't need to become chains. They don't need to become chains for the processes, for the day-to-day processes. And then fifth point, minimize customization. This is a little bit less of an issue with off-the-shelf tools, because normally you have tools that are ready to be used, but still that's pretty common. You want to have custom fields, you want to have custom processes, you start creating this second layer of features that need to be maintained, that are not always justified, and that tend to make the tool more complex than it needs to be. So when you select the tech stack, it's 50% about the tools and 50% also about the people changing in some way the way they work. So that's an opportunity to reflect: is the current way of working is the right one, or it could be simplified? And again, this has been something that we find in the projects pretty often. These are common conversations.
Yes, very true. And I think another thing to point out here, I would want to add is two things. The first is, if you start from your key processes, basically, or selecting a simplest fitting tool, starting small, which is really advisable in this context, right? And not trying to build everything on a blank canvas, because you'll never find something that works in real life on a blank canvas. You'll have to go iteratively and be agile, right? You have to do something, and as you said, deliberately accept some limitations to really see what are the functionalities that we need to add, right? So you start small to really then have a validated idea of what you have to add because you're missing a feature, right? When you do that, make sure that you go for tools that integrate well with others. Because if you choose a minimal fitting tool, you might want to add and plug in other tools in the future. So don't go for the isolated software that can't integrate with Zapier or any other natively integrated app, but choose something that has a lot of connection points to other software tools to be able to then add tools later. And the second thing I want to mention is the same approach is true regardless of whether you choose specialty software for project management, CRM, a billing software, or if you build all of that yourself in one app building software like Airtable or Kissflow or these other process and app building tools. Also there, start small, try to cover your key processes, and then add features slowly and deliberately, because it's so easy to get carried away by the options of automation and we could do that, and let's do this, and let's do that. And you end up with a tool that's basically limiting the way you work instead of helping you. And last conclusion on this, minimizing customizations and also with regards to automation, there is a certain value and benefit to doing things manually, right? Because you keep track of things. So moving leads through your funnel manually instead of by any automations that are triggered by some form of outside tool, a proposal being signed, etc., has its own value because you keep track of your pipeline, for example, right? And this is true in other cases as well. Obviously, it doesn't work at all scale levels, right? If you have 1,000 leads in your pipeline, then obviously this becomes difficult. But for the average agency, we find that a good amount of manual work in software tools has its advantages as long as there's some insight tied to that work.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And we always find that it's better to have the need of adding a new features arising from the use of the tool, as opposed to preemptively adding this kind of automations. That is definitely the case. So let's look at the concrete example. Concrete, but fictional in a sense. I see that the presentation is not going. 1 second only. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So here's an example of a technology stack of an agency. It's is not a specific agency, but this is a little bit of a representative example of what we typically see. I mean, there are several tools, there are several options, but the overall structure is it's very common, and I would even say that this is a relatively clean example of what we could find. But we have several processes. We have backend processes like people operations, payroll, personal data, technology, meaning like email, domain, website. Here I didn't place anything, but you can imagine of having Google, having Microsoft 365, or like these more of infrastructural tools. Finance and admin, having the accounting, having the more the administrative data, and then you have processes that are more directly related to the clients. So the value adding processes like marketing and sales, client onboarding, project delivery, and customer support. And then you have like collaboration and task management for in-team conversation and coordination. So here we see that the picture then this quite straightforward tech stack of an agency that could be 20 to 50 people has several tools, and it doesn't look so bad on principle, no? But there are several issues. I don't know if you can see it because it's not moving my page, but I will move this way. So you should now see the version.
Yeah,
with the issues. Perfect. And so here, if we can take a look at it, we can see that there are some issues. So one is, for instance, I don't want to I don't want to blame any tools. This is more about the concept, because all the tools themselves make sense in some respects and make sense in some context. But for instance, for this specific agency, Zoho was an overkill, because they didn't really use all the features. They just needed to process payroll. They didn't use like the onboarding, the interview tool, the training. So it was really 10% used. So you have a tool there, you pay for that, and you are not taking advantage of that. You then, if we go to the marketing and sales part, you have HubSpot. Again, great tool, makes a lot of sense when it's used to its potential. So in this case, it was not integrated with the following steps. So you create, you win a project, you win a contract, and manually you have to create the task. You have to create the next steps, even the administrative one, in the client onboarding in Trello. You have to send the information to QuickBooks for invoicing. Again, it can be integrated, but I would say integration is an option that you consider after having found a tool that ideally covers more of these features. Again, continuing on the task side, we see both Trello and Asana, two great tools. We like both of them, but they rarely make sense together. So this could be for historical reason. The sales team likes likes Trello. The project team, the creatives, they like Asana. They started this way. This was never consolidated, and then again you have inconsistency between the teams, in the processes and in the handover. Customer support, you could have like a gorgeous, very nice tool, a little bit more e-commerce focused, but you can use it in general for gorgeous or Zendesk for general customer support. Very nice tool, but you may not use that, especially in context like those of an agency. And again, here in the collaboration, we see, for instance, both Google Chat, because the company has G Suite, Google Suite, and as Slack. So some conversation happen here, some conversation happen in Slack. Not dramatic, but also not ideal. So let's see one potential solution here. This is, again, one potential solution, neither the best nor the only one. But what we could consider here, what is normally we encourage the clients to consider, is to, in this case, you can consider removing the tool that is underutilized. So in this case, Zoho, you can fit your processes to less advanced tool for the people management side. So you can survive with the tools, HR tools that are in QuickBooks in this sense. Maybe you are covered partially in your processes, but all the data is consistently shared, all the administrative data is consistently shared across the backend processes. If you look at the main processes of an agency, again, definitely not a single solution, but you can consider, or the agency considered, integrating the same tool, which in this case was Asana, throughout the flow of the leads and the process and the projects. So you can use Asana as a very simple CRM. Again, not comparable with the HubSpot in terms of features, but it covers the main basis for lead management, at least at the beginning. That depends also on the reporting needs that you have, on the requirements that you have. But in an agency, you can think of starting small and then expanding or upgrading wherever needed. So you can gain overall from having a single tool throughout the processes. In this case, Asana. You could have done the same with Trello, and having the data consistently shared, again, the single source of truth in these processes. And here, this is my, I would say, favorite part: killing tools, especially where are not needed. Customer support is not a key process. You rarely need a dedicated ticketing tool, so get rid of that, manage it manually. Then you can use email, then you can use Asana, expand it here wherever needed, but don't use a tool if you don't need a tool. So the principle is, if you can walk somewhere, you don't necessarily buy a car. You really need to have a good reason to use a tool. And in the collaboration side as well, we have two overlapping tools, Slack and Google Chat. The choice in this case, get rid of Google Chat and have all the conversation of Slack, many integration, you can connect with the tools, you can have automation. So that was, again, one potential solution. And then here, these are, I mean, conversation are endless and options are endless, no?
I agree. They really are. I think that's also why the principles are really important. But I think eliminating tools is always a great idea, because if you think about it, there's multiple types of costs involved with the tech stack, right? So if you now in this scenario coming from 6 to 3 software tools, what you're saving is a few different types of money. One is obviously just spend on the tool, right? So there's obviously the licensing fees for the user cost that you have with the tools. That's number one. Number two is there's cost for administration of all of these tools, right? So you have to spend time to set up accounts, close accounts, I don't know, have some interchange with the customer support every once in a while. So there's always a tiny bit of work around these tools. But then if you add this up across a tool landscape of 6, 12, 18, 24 tools, it adds up, right? So this is the second type of cost. The third type of cost, obviously, is the cost that it takes your team to get onboarded on these tools. Whenever you hire somebody new, they have to learn not only the tool itself if they don't know, but also the way you use it, number 3. Number 4 is the complexity this creates, right? So switching costs between tools is a thing. And then, also these things like where's the single source of truth, searching cost, time that is needed to find information, all these type of things. So there's multiple different commercial reasons to keep your tool stack as lean as possible.
Yeah, and ideally, rather than eliminating tool, if you are wise from the beginning, you are adding tools slowly enough to move efficiently. But many times,
true. I mean, in reality, and that's true for us as well, we're guilty of most of these problems ourselves. I think there's good reason to take a bird's eye view every once in a while, make an inventory, list the cost of all your tools, and then go through an exercise like this to reevaluate, do I really still need something like this? Or maybe have features changed, needs change, and is there something I can eliminate? Because it's so easy to get carried away by functionality of a new cool tool that might solve a problem, an isolated problem, right? So I think it's very unlikely that you manage to stay 100% disciplined, but I think this approach of having this mindset to get started helps with not growing extensively quick, and still every once in a while take a while, sit back and look at your toolset and ask yourself, do I need all of these?
Indeed. And here's to close our conversation on the tech stack, and this is benchmarking exercise that we did for a client. This is basically how we approach, how we think about platform selection. So I will now highlight how at least personally we approach these considerations. So in this case, what we did for an agency, I hope that is readable enough. It's basically going over the main tools that are on the market. We tend to start with the off-the-shelf tool, given that now there is an offering that is huge and you really need good reason to go custom. But what we did, we mapped the main tools on the market against the features that that the agency was looking for. So that can be customized. You may look for something that covers all of your processes. You may look for something that covers all your commercial processes or your backend. In this case, we were looking for tools that would cover most of the key processes of an agency. So from lead management to project management, invoicing, billing, expense reporting, time tracking, then back-end processes, and all the main activities of an agency. So what we did, and this is going to be then also handed over as a freebie. This is we prepared this framework to compare the tools. So we pick the most famous tools on the market. We compare them which has which features. And please note that we also included some features that are not process related, but we care that it can be integrated with Zapier for flexibility. We care that the data can be imported, exported. We cared about the fact having some messaging system. We looked about in a software website. G2 is a pretty famous software comparison platform. That the software was had a good score, how many how many reviews it had, and we could compare pretty much with in a few minutes which tools could do the job. No, because if you have key processes, if you want to have something that covers the billing, if the billing is a requirement, you can pretty much quickly discard several tools and focus on other ones. So again, it really depends on how much of how many of your activities you want to cover, but you can be systematic about it. That it can be an exercise that you do when you take a bird eye view of your tech stack, and you can select wisely the tool, also keep in mind the financial cost of each. And I would say that this is one approach. This is something that was helpful for the client, we encourage the agencies to do that.
Yeah, and I want to add here. I mean, this client is an established agency that's been operating for a while on multiple on a diversified tool set. So they had validated interest and need for all of these functionalities, right? So because it's a pretty comprehensive approach that, based on what we just said, might not be recommended as you grow, right? So when you're growing, it might not make sense to look for all of these features at once, right? But rather choose something that's really at the core of what you need. But an overview like this will help. And the second thing I want to stress is really the sequence has to be, it's process first, tool second, right? So first you have to develop the left side requirements, like what are the things that we really need, and then map the tools against it. Because again, they're all shiny and look nice, and you oftentimes have a good usability, except for ClickUp. No, sorry. No, but so they all look nice. So it makes sense to as like when you go shopping, right? Write a shopping list before you go into the grocery store, and you make sure you end up with the stuff that you actually wanted to buy, instead of going in there and just grabbing what is nice and what sits at the cashier on eye level and what you're just craving for at the moment. So do you build your shopping list and then go out to shop? This ensures that you end up with something that will carry you for a longer time, instead of just the new fancy thing that's shiny and has some cool features.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that this wraps it up for our tech stack conversation. And I don't know, Ben, if you have any closing remark.
Nothing to add, Francesco. Thanks for walking us through the approach to tech stack. And if you want to learn more, get in touch, feel free to scan the barcode here and shoot us a message either on the homepage or a direct message on LinkedIn. And we'll be publishing that toolset overview next week as a downloadable asset. So stay tuned for that. Feel free to download it to save yourself some searching time for your potential next operating tool or project management tool in your agency. So thanks for tuning in today, Francesco. Thank you for walking us through that. And we see you probably 2 weeks from now. to the next LinkedIn Live, leading your agency.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.